I mean, it's such a nuanced and unique way to interact with people. I actually think like the reason that I like doing podcasts is because I like having these conversations, this way of interacting with people where we have these, believe it or not, everybody, there's cameras everywhere and there's lights and everything's, set up. It's almost, this doesn't feel natural.
Right.
Like this doesn't, so when you start doing something like this, where I'm talking in this microphone, but I see you over there.
Yeah. Also doing the same thing.
Yeah. And so it's not a natural feeling of a thing, but eventually you're sort of like, actually, this is natural. This is how I have these kinds of conversations, which is actually now this is how we have these kinds of conversations, because these kinds of conversations, unfortunately, and the thing that I would like to inspire the most is for people to have more of this stuff. It seems like they don't do this until we get on a podcast. And so that's why I'm a friend of mine posted hey, in 2025, one of the 25 don'ts, do not start your own podcast. We have enough podcasts. Everybody started enough podcasts. And I remember back 2019 or 18, we talked about doing a GoFast podcast. And we're there's too many podcasts, the world doesn't need another podcast. But in reality, I'm one of the best, I told my best friend to start a podcast for her to do with her grandpa. Cause she's he's, I don't know how many more years he's going to be around. And I was you should do a podcast with him. Just sit because what I find is that for some reason when you sit down and you put the cameras on or you're just recording it and there's a microphone and you got headphones and it just feels like something official, and it's something that you can go back and reference and you can hear someone's voice, which I've got voicemails. My whole voice, my inbox is full of my grandparents' voicemails.
Wow.
Yeah. Just because I'm I'm keeping that,
For sure.
But if you could have a podcast, also how many of us have had a conversation with our grandparents where sit down just like this with your grandma, grandpa, or dad, or mom, or sister, or whoever, and be so. Earlier it's who is this Brady?
Yeah.
Who is this Encarnacion?
Need to borrow some sweats.
Yeah, we don't do that, and we seem to only do it when we have when we do a podcast, and we seem to do, we do podcasts with people who are you are interesting. Let's talk about you because you're interesting, and it's which makes sense, right? Because it's going to be a great podcast because this guy's interesting. They have a unique, but everyone has a unique something. And to be honest, a lot of people who are unique or they're a thought leader or whatever they are, they're not like most people by virtue of who they are. They think differently. They think outside the box. They operate in a different, their vision is different. Their execution is different. The way they walk in the world is different. That's why they stand out. That's why they get on a podcast, which is great. For people who are looking for an alternative perspective and they're looking for something, I've tried to stop saying but entirely. Pretty much I say but and. If I say but, it is followed with an and. Because dialectics, right?
Right.
Two things can be true at the same time. A lot of people would just super benefit from just be to me, the average ordinary story is fascinating to me because I'm how? How do you do that? We have this men's group that's actually over at the gym over there that was this morning, but I skipped it because I was attacked by a pillow last night. I almost lit myself on fire last night. There was a pillow, it fell on a space heater, and then I was having dreams that everything was on fire. I actually had this dream that the McDonald's was on fire north of town. And I drove by there, and for some reason my house was right next to it. And so I was a little nervous about my house. Obviously this California fighter's happening and been watching all of that. But the McDonald's, and then I went over and there was a construction site where they were building a house and it was kind of on fire. I'm dude, this is not good. Why are we not? I guess I'll go. And I go up there and there's this kid. I'm hey, what's going on? Do you see that's on fire? He's oh yeah, that's my dad's. He also owns the McDonald's. And I'm what's going on? He's oh, he's gonna build his house there next year. So I'm it's actively burning. I'm so you lit it on fire or something? What's? He's And I'm creating conspiracy theories in my own dreams. But when I woke up, my throat was burning and my eyes hurt and I had a headache and there was a pillow that fell on a space heater that was just like melting and like
just piping smoke.
Yeah, fanning into my face. Jeez. What about my plants? They probably saved me, actually.
They probably did the air purification via plant. That's what you get. That's what, they're paying you back for singing to them every night.
So these are my new plants. This is probably the most important part of the podcast. You know that Queen song, Can Anybody Find Me Somebody to Love?
Mm-hmm.
This is my somebody to love.
You have found it?
It's practice. It's about reps, right? Like anything. Like start by loving something. It's like go to jiu-jitsu and it's like the first thing you're going to do is probably not challenge the black belt to a fight to the death, right?
You can, but you're going to lose.
You can. It actually, most people do. What's so funny, you see people come to jiu-jitsu and they're like, I'm pretty sure I'm going to kick everybody's ass.
Yeah, this isn't going to work on me.
and then they go in and they have that weird moment where they're like, I'm kind of stuck. But I'm still going to keep going hard. I just see it. I've seen it a billion times by now. But anyway, so I'm taking a very white belt approach to my plants. But these are my plants. This is a crimson philodendron. This is Sadie. That's Peter. That's Parker over there. So there's Peter and Parker.
Perfect.
They're spider plants.
Shout out Spider-Man.
Shout out Spider-Man. Peter Parker. This one is Kesha. Kesha just started following me, by the way. Shout out Kesha.
Shout out Kesha.
Miss you. This one is Shui Coco. It's a Chinese money plant. We'll talk more about that later. That's a Monstera. That's Nicki Minaj. And there's Pothos Malone is in the bathroom. I think that's all the plants.
You've got quite the gang. You've got a lot of kids, man.
Quite the little family.
Yeah.
I know. And Drew was like, oh, and there's this cactus right over here. That is the rose pole. We named her. Her name's Caitlin.
There's feathers in the cactus plants. What's the story behind those?
She gave me feathers with.
They came off a bird.
I think they came from a bird, I believe. A rare flying bird.
Perfect.
Yeah, she just gave those in the box. She's like, I like to put feathers in them. I'm like, that sounds awesome.
Seems very cactus.
I need to come up with a better story than that. Like, oh, that was the feathers of my grandfather's hawk.
It was the feathers out of the cap of the rootin' tootin'est cowboy of all time.
From the great Soren Kierkegaard.
Yeah.
Anyway, so
yeah,
I have plants now, and I'm learning to love them slowly. You know, they don't need a ton of water. They don't need a ton of love, you know, and they'll show up and they'll help me breathe. Anyway, so I'm learning.
How did you make the plant versus dog decision?
Oh man. I was lonely, you know, and trying to, a lonely man is it's a dangerous thing. And it's like men who are lonely are like, they're like hungry men in a crappy grocery store, you know, trying to make good, healthy food decisions.
You're going to get the Oreos.
It's like, don't walk through the aisles, dude. Do not walk through the aisles. You know, there's so much, there are wholesome things in the world, and there's sugar, you know, and there's steak. There is I call it seasoning. Have we ever talked about this?
No, I've heard you talk about it, but
yeah, there's seasoning and there's steak, and there's a whole lot of seasoning in the world. It's in abundance, and you'll die if that's your only source of nutrition and nourishment. But I thought maybe I should get a dog. The internet actually definitely thought I should get a dog. I posted that up there because I posted a little poll. I don't know what I was doing, but I was doing like my neck thing because I just bulged a disc in C8, which is a major bummer. My hand's numb. I posted something and it was like, one was like, I get it. 2 was like, you're speaking nonsense. And 3 was, you should get a dog. Most people said I get it, but I think it was just because that was the first option.
Yeah.
Definitely second most was, you should get a dog. No one said you're speaking nonsense, which I really appreciated. Usually there's that one person. You ever notice that? I don't know if you ever put up a poll where like one answer is just like obviously not the right answer, and there's always that one person who goes in. I go block those people now. Literally, like I'm like hilariously like when people go on my stuff and they're like say something just to be contrarian, which is hilarious because that's who I am.
Right.
But I'm like, oh, you didn't want to see this? Okay, goodbye.
It's funny. It's it's like the hate followers.
And then they message you and they're like, did you delete your Instagram? I'm like, no, I deleted yours. You jerk. I don't need that in my life, dude. You're breathing carbon dioxide in my plants, or you're breathing oxygen in my plants.
Stay away from the plants.
What do you guys like? Yeah, you're trying to rob my plants. You're trying to melt a pillow in my face.
I've had people click the wrong response and DM me afterwards and be like, bro, I didn't mean to.
Oh, dude, I meant to choose the other one. Yeah. I clicked the wrong thing.
I'm not one of those people.
That's a good thing, dude. You better be quick for me, because if I see it, you're out of here, brother.
You're on the block list.
Actually, it's funny because for me, you know, like I just go around liking people's stuff. I'm not like a picky liker. If it's my friend, I almost don't even, before I even see what it is, because I'm like, this is a free thing. I'm going to watch it anyway. Like, I'm going to have to touch my screen again. This is literally one touch to like be like a fist bump. Like, good job, dude.
Yeah.
Like the people who go and like this is funny, but people who go like your stories, like put the little heart on your stories. Mm-hmm. I see you in my club. I'm just like, these are people who are like, they just took an extra second, an extra one. They were already consuming the thing. And for me, it's like, don't skip it. I don't skip. Like I'm liking people's stuff, you know, unless I'm just like, it's like, you know, mindless, like it's playing while I'm doing stuff, you know, whatever. But like I'm in there trying to it's social media, and you have this opportunity to be like, dude, sick, nice, I like what you're doing there. And it's just, and it doesn't have to be awkward. You don't have to say anything. You don't have to, it's just this opportunity to like pay somebody in something that costs you nothing. Right. And the idea that people skip it, and the other people like watch your thing and they're like, no, not good enough for me. Try again, pal.
You didn't earn my like.
You know, it's like, dude, it's so cheap. You know, like I'm not saying you got to go on there, comment, and say you changed my life. I don't. But like, if your authentic expression is to like, I could encourage you, and I'm gonna choose not to. You know, like I'm literally gonna not clap when you're done with your song, because like it wasn't good enough. If you want me to clap, you know, like, and I have those people in my life and I appreciate those people, but most people aren't actually those people. You know, they're not like, I demand excellence from you. Usually what those people are instead are, I actually think you did a pretty good job here, and I don't want to overhype you. I don't want you to do better than I see that you're already doing better than me. I don't like that. But I definitely don't want you to do any better, because then the gap furthers, you know? And the crazy thing is, like, they're actually making the gap further by not encouraging. And this is like, Instagram is like a very zoomed in version of this thing. But when you don't encourage somebody because you think that it might hype them up higher and separate them more from you, by not doing that, you are separating them more from you, because you are becoming less, and they are and they're where they are. You're not dropping them down. You're not like, you can't affect how great they are or what they are. You actually absolutely can affect who you are. So when you're not encouraging somebody, you are creating a greater delta between you and them, when your intention was to not do that. You silly kids.
I think it's textbook scarcity mindset, right? Like, the pie is only so big, and if you're having all of that pie over there, that means there must be less for me.
Dude, scarcity mindset. I'm a scarcity mindset guy, I think.
How so?
We have this conversation all the time, and Josh and I started OnlyCo, which is the agency that you put it in there. Josh was doing way back in the day, like 2009. He was in college doing Facebook, you know.
2009 is early Facebook.
Yeah, no, he was like in college, and he's like, I'm running people's face, and he bugged me for like a year. He's like, let's start a business together. I want you. And I was like, a lot of people were approaching me with stuff to do.
What were you doing at the time?
Well, I was trying to still do music. So I had a band. I was trying to do that. But I also I was going to college and worked at Verizon, which was a killer job because it was all commission. So I'm like, I can just sell the crap out of things to people and make pretty good money. It's not I get to kind of decide my hourly rate because I'm a commission salesperson.
Right.
And I would just crush, dude. I would just sell everybody literally everything and be like, nice, I made a ton of money, which lasted for a little while until I have a whole story about what crushed that whole thing. Now I don't like selling anything to anybody ever. I'm just like, it's this good, you choose.
Right.
You know? But anyway, I was doing that. OnlyCo. Josh and I talked about scarcity mindset, abundance mindset. And I'm a scarcity, like I grew up, you know, I didn't grow up like poor in the streets and, you know, I had rags and me and my 3 sisters shared a bed. Not like that. But it's not like we had, you know, we got a pair of shoes for the school year kind of thing, you know? And my dad would take me to, I love this. I loved my childhood. Like it was so good. I wouldn't want it any other way. I'm so grateful for everything we had and everything we didn't have, because I know so many have lots who like just struggle now because they're like, I don't know, it was just always there and that was always there and that was always, but we go to the pawn shops. My dad, this is like our vacation. He would load up, he had a tire disposal business, and he would load up we would just put as many tires in this trailer as we could get, 240 tires. We'd take them up. We'd go to this dude, Kendall, who was on the Crow Reservation. My dad's an honorary Crow tribe member, actually.
Nice.
We'd go up there and we'd sell him that. We'd like keep the good ones, you know, like the tires that people would take off for seasonal tires.
Right.
But they're like, well, can't be bothered with these used tires in my place. You take them. And so there would be good tires that people just used for a season, then they swap because it's winter now.
Yeah.
And so we'd take them up there and we'd sell them to them for like $5 a piece or whatever. And we'd sell them to Kendall and he'd sell them to whoever. But he had anyway. So we'd make like, I don't know, $200-300 on this load, right? And so we'd drop the trailer off to him, and then we'd take the truck up to Billings. We'd sleep in the back of the truck in like a truck stop. Nice. Put a tarp over the top of it, and we'd just sleep in the back. And then during the day, like, you know, like he would give me some of the money that we made because I helped load the tires. And we'd go to pawn shops. And what I learned there was, you know, like $10 at Walmart's $10. You can buy $10 worth of things.
Right.
But $10 at a pawn shop is, well, what can you do with $10, right?
Becomes a game.
It's a game fully, right? Which life is, you know? So I would go be like, well, how much could I get with this $10? And if you can create a relationship, right? Like if you can relate with someone, they all of a sudden, now they want you to win, right? And so they're like, how much can this kid swindle me out of, right? And you're like, I'll do this. And so I'd go up and I'd be like, hey, this thing ain't worth $1. I'll give you $2, you know? And I would just like insult them immediately and then make them an offer. But I also like, it's crazy because I was a kid using like, using price anchoring to negotiate, you know, right, buying a CD. And it was awesome, but they would be like, how dare you, you know, but like a 10-year-old just told me, you know, my stuff isn't worth anything. You'll pay me double what it's worth. It's just like,
what do I do with this set of cards?
It was funny when I when I turned like 15, 16, I kind of went from being like the cute kid who would insult the big man behind the counter to being like this annoying punk kid. And all of a sudden, like all my tricks stopped working, you know? But anyway, I just grew up, I just always think about like, well, what if it all goes to zero? What would I do if everything just went away? And I constantly think about that. And whether that's good, or I think it's good in some ways, I think it's not good in other ways, but I constantly am like, because I've had a handful of times where everything went to zero, everything went to, or negative, you know? And in those moments when you're not prepared for it, you're just like, it's so rough. But when you're kind of constantly assessing, you're constantly looking and going, if everything went to zero, or if everything went as bad as it could go, would I be okay?
Is there any piece that comes from that, is maybe not feeling like you have a game plan, but knowing like, you know, I'm intimately aware of what zero might look like?
Yeah. And I kind of just operate there, like no matter. Yeah. And so sometimes I'm like, sometimes I think scarcity mindset sort of gets a bad rap, you know, versus this abundance mindset. I've heard abundance mindset from people who die, you know what I mean? Like I'm like I've heard the amount of times I've heard, well, we need to have an abundance mindset here, is where I'm like, we need to root in ignorance and just like keep going. I'm not about rooting in ignorance, you know. And I'm actually like, I feel like I'm a an optimist. I absolutely feel like I'm an optimist. The amount of times I've heard that from people, I think maybe there's some association there too, where I'm like, I heard abundance mindset from this guy who was doing absolute nonsense. I heard abundance mindset from this project that went very poorly, whatever. Anyway, sometimes scarcity, I'm just like, what would you do if it all went away?
Yeah.
Would you be okay if you didn't have that car, if you didn't have that thing, if you didn't have that, like, what is your value? What are your friendships like? What do you have if all of the things you have to offer, or the progress that you've made, or the, like, people want to be your friend because you have this, or could have this, or what they could do, or what you could do for them, where you could put them. What if you didn't? What if all that went away? And so, like, I just think about that. And so I think a scarcity mindset in that context is just super valuable.
Oh, for sure. Have you always had that kind of relationship with the kind of like the intangible goals, right? Where it's like the friendships, the moments, all of that stuff is a goal and means a lot, versus it's so easy to get caught in the trap of like, okay, I'm going to make this much money this year, and then I'm going to buy this house, and then I'm going to do like, have you always been in that place where some of those intangibles are a goal or like mean a lot to you?
Intangibles, you mean like friendships and relationships and that kind of stuff?
Things you can't count. It's not a bank balance. It's not a house. It's not anything like that.
I don't know that I don't think I always felt that way. I think I've had a few chapters where I just like sort of lost all the people. I sort of lost everything all at once.
Well,
and when that like when that happens and you're not okay, you're super not okay, you're caught off guard, you're rocked in a fight, like that hook slipped through, it hit you, and you're like, I am wobbly on my feet, and I am fully aware that he wants to take me out. Like I'm fully aware that the wolves are at the door right now, and you have to survive, figure out how to survive. And then you go, I never, ever, 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 ever want to get back to that place again, because it's very scary. It's the worst. It's the worst spot. It's the freaking worst spot. So yeah, I think, yeah, there might be some interesting anchoring there where you go, will I be okay if I get there again? I have to be okay if I get there again, which is scary, which is like, as far as like in racing, there's target fixation, there's target fixation in everything, but I did some flat track, and so like you race flat track, and if whatever you look at, you're going that direction, right? If you look at the tree you don't want to hit, you're going to hit the tree, right? If you look toward the inside of the track, you're going to stay towards the inside of the track. So like your vision, actually one of the craziest things ever, Johnny, what is Johnny's name? Anyway, flat track racer. Shout out Johnny. Sorry, I forgot your last name right now. But he was teaching me flat track. Like we had like a little, not a retreat, like a camp, like a flat track camp in Texas. And the thing that made me the fastest, that increased it wasn't like, pull the throttle right here. It wasn't like, it really had nothing to do with what I was doing with the motorcycle. It was all about vision. It's like, you need to keep your head up and look toward the inside of the track at all times. Like everywhere that you're at, you need to be looking where you're going. And yeah, I suppose, if you're constantly looking at like, well, what if I lost everything? What if everything went away?
Right.
You might run into that. You might like drift into that thing. So yeah, maybe I'm talking myself out of the scarcity mindset, but I feel like scarcity mindset gets a bad rap. Sometimes I'm like, because the thing is, I'm pretty consistently like, I'll be okay if everything goes to zero. If everything gets like, everything goes away, I'm going to be all right. Mm-hmm. But every bit of energy you spend thinking about that, you're not spending thinking about like, what if things are awesome though? What if things go to 1,000,
Yeah. There's one of my favorite sayings that I've seen come out of GoFast is peace in the process, joy in the journey. And it seems like there might be some ties there to the fact that like, the journey might be some of those zero moments. It might be some of the infinitely things are awesome moments. But I'm curious where those words in that order, like what that means for you.
I think that's all there is. I think we have this thing you know, like you're just not supposed to wait until you're on vacation on a beach or, you know, a lubricated Friday night to meet your feet, right? Like you're just not supposed to like, oh, eventually. And then once I get this done, then I'll be where I am. Then I'll meet myself and hang out and just chill once this is done. And if you can figure out a way for yourself to enjoy. I remember, man, one of the most special, like life-altering moments of my life when we were down in Mexico, and I was up real early doing my lunges and sunning my butthole and doing everything Andrew Huberman told me to do, you know, and, you know, doing my sun salutations and making an Instagram video of it, I'm sure. And there was this dude there was only one other guy who was up, and he was changing all the garbage cans. And I was sad. You know, I was like super sad. And there's a lot of things going on in my life that made sense that I was sad. Mm-hmm. But I'm like, I'm on a motorcycle trip with a bunch of homies doing, you know, putting my dog down on, that's a yoga reference.
Okay. Downward dog.
Downward dog, yeah. Putting my dog down on a beach, you know, on sunrise, everything's beautiful. And this dude is taking out the trash. That's his job. He's up early. I'm up early because I'm like, yeah, I'm the man. He's up early because it's his job. But he's whistling while he's working. You know, you ever hear that song, Whistle While You Work? Mm-hmm. Oops, I don't know what the rest of it, but I'm like, he's whistling and just having a great time, you know, wrapping up the trash. All right, I got this one and a brand new trash bag, and he's like, you know, taking pride in his work, and he's tying it off. He's like, oh yeah, and I'm just like watching it while I'm doing my lunges, and I'm like, this guy's got to figure it out, because he's happier than anybody I know. Certainly he's happier than me, and I'm on a motorcycle trip like in Mexico with a bunch of, like, I'm doing cool stuff, you know, and I've got people, I'm going to post the cool stuff I'm doing on the internet, and everyone's going to tell me how cool it is, which makes it even cooler, right? And this dude, nobody knows, I don't know what his name is. Probably 17 people know what his name is, you know, and he's good. Right? Mm-hmm. That Mexican fisherman story, you know.
Dude, I was waiting to bring that up. Yeah.
I don't know if this guy was a fisherman, but I'm telling you about the Mexican garbage man story is a real story that I lived. And so just the idea of that, like, if you can find peace in the process, you can find joy in the journey. All there is the journey. You do not reach these moments of, like, you know, these mountaintop moments, you know, like, oh, when I win the title, right? Then I'll be good. Then I'll like celebrate. But I'm hungry until I reach the title. The only reason the title even matters is because it's fueling the journey to get there. And the journey is the only thing you'll actually remember. That moment, you know, let's say you do win, right? You're going to have a few hours maybe. You know, you're going to have a little bit where you're like, I am satisfied. You know, I have done the thing that I set out to do.
Yep.
And then by virtue of you being the type of person who could get to that point, unless you made some, you know, silly goal that was really easy for you, by virtue of you being that person, probably after minutes, but maybe after hours, depending on how, you know, much you can let yourself enjoy it, you're going to be like, but I want to be a 2-time champion. You know, or now I want the, you know, it's like you constantly see, like you see in the UFC, everybody's like, oh yeah, I'm a champion, but I want to be a double champ. I want to be a champ. Once you see the bar lifted, you just want to continue to pursue that thing. And it's the excellence, right? And it's that in the process that is the beautiful thing. It's not the moments, because look, how many times has John Jones defended his title? You know, he spent, I don't know, how many times has he defended his title?
All the times,
yeah. Obviously, but maybe like 16. I don't know.
Something crazy. He's got the record for it, doesn't he?
Yeah. Oh yeah, for sure. But like, but how long has he spent where he's like in there getting the belt wrapped around him? You know, that probably takes a minute every time, right? Of that whole process. So 16 minutes.
Right.
You know, of that like kind of sort of peak moment, right? And that's where you find that these guys who like they achieve this excellence, and then they have to go tear themselves down because they need the journey. They need something. They need more. You know, we have that thing. And I think if you can just, I think the Zen Buddha, like the black belt in living, figures out how to have peace in the process and joy in the journey. You enjoy the process of the thing. You're not waiting on life's paychecks. You know, you're enjoying the work. if you can fall in love with the work, you know, it's like the paycheck just like comes and goes, and it's not really about that. That's great. But if you're falling in love with a paycheck, you're probably doing the wrong thing.
Yeah.
So yeah, Pete, I think just be where your feet are, man. Like it's that. That's all there is the process. That's all there is the journey. These mountaintop moments are so few and so far between. And in my experience, they're pretty much a letdown, because the thing that I built up in my head, I'm like, it's going to feel like this. There's going to be no pain in my body. You know, every heartache is going to go away. I'm going to not have a single stress on my mind. And in reality, you get to those moments, you're like, yeah. You're almost trying to convince yourself.
Yeah.
You're like, oh man, see? Yeah, I'll yell, or I don't know. But you know, like in those moments, I'm like, shoot, it's just kind of life. It was cool, but the coolest part was, you know, when I tripped halfway up, and you know, I had to have this little emotional moment where I was like, should I walk back down or should I keep going? And I was like, that's where I learned about myself. That's where I became myself. That's where I became the person who could reach the top. And if you skip the presence of mind in those moments, you know, those slip on the rock moments, those I don't want to take the next step moments, you miss the whole thing. Mm-hmm. You know, it's literally the same thing as just, hey, can you just fast forward to the end of the movie and we'll just celebrate how it ends? You know, like that's what we like to do.
It's a 3-minute movie.
But it's like the movie is the thing, dude. The setup and the drama and the you know, like if you're just zoomed to the climax, you don't even understand what it was about in the first place.
100%. That's something that I've found myself struggling with for a long time, is that you know, I grew up playing sports. My dad was a football coach growing up. I fell in love with it super early, and I loved a lot of the things about practice. Like, I think practice was my favorite part. Yeah. There were cool moments in games, and there was cool, like, you know, there was cool stuff and all of that. But like, when I look back on it, my favorite things were being in the front yard with my dad, and he was like teaching me how to throw from a bunch of different arm angles, or like, we've got this glass of water and we're like, you know, pouring it out this way so I can like learn how to pitch a football and all this like little stuff. And what I found was there was at some point that I started, instead of loving that stuff, I started to see it as like a checkbox, where I was like, okay, well, if I'm going to be the best at this and the starter and the state champion and the this and that and the other thing, then I have to do these things at this level, and I have to do my hardest. And then that is where, that is how we can reach equilibrium. And what I found was that so often when we would win a game, didn't matter how big or small it was like, okay, yep, we won that game. That success in whatever we were going for was the default. And it was a default because everything leading up to that was also just a checkbox. And so what I found was it became super difficult for me, and it's something that I'm still working on, to actually find a way to enjoy those wins, because it just felt like, well, yeah, this is just what's supposed to happen.
Yeah, it becomes math.
But on the other end of that, I would feel all of the letdown, and I would feel none of everything above that line.
Yeah.
And I'm working on unwinding that right now, and trying to, like, you know, become, you know, we say be where your feet are all the time. I try to say it more and more and more, and put it on as much hats and shirts and all this stuff, because I need to see it all the time.
Yep. Yeah, that's the whole thing. That's the whole thing from GoFast. We're not a t-shirt company. We're not an apparel company. Like we're not even a company. In my eyes, we're a brand. You know, we exist to contribute to a culture and community that inspired us to exist. That's the whole thing. But we come to you come to these the end of these great chapters, at the end of this great journey. You have something to say about it. Like, well, I guess, you know, what I learned is I could write a book about every single one of them, or I could distill it down, which is maybe the toughest part, to say peace in the process, joy in the journey is what I've learned in this thing. And it's like, even in that, you're like, I'm trying to unwind this thing, and it's like, well, enjoy the unwinding.
For sure.
You know, like actually, like, you're like, wow, this is crazy. So the cool thing about me, which is like, that's the thing I hate about me, is, you know, I don't celebrate the wins because that's an expectation I have, but I absolutely, you know, I sit there and eat the failures like I'm the fat kid on Matilda, you know?
Right.
What's his name? Remember that? You seen Matilda?
Once, but not enough to remember the kid's name.
All right, if you guys haven't seen it.
Anybody here remember Fat Kid? Oh, well, fuck.
Frankie or something like that. Dang it.
We'll go with Frankie.
Heath. No, not Heath. That's just a Anyway, the story goes, Miss Trunchbull, he ate one of Miss Trunchbull's pieces of chocolate cake. And she's like, oh, you like eating my cake, huh? And so she made him this massive chocolate cake, and then he had to go eat the whole thing in front of the whole, like they had a what do you call those?
Like an assembly?
Assembly, that's it. An assembly, and they're like, all right, everybody watch him eat the whole cake. Anyway, you eat your failures like that, right? And where you sit and you're just like, oh my gosh, I'm like trudging through this thing over and over again. But realize that I think the thing is, it's like, you don't have to wait to enjoy this process until you've unwound that thing. You can be like, it's so cool because that's like the recipe for excellence. And I have the recipe for excellence. I exist like the recipe is me. The recipe is a huge part of who I am. That's why I'm great at these things. That's why I'm good at jiu-jitsu, and I'm getting good at boxing, and I'm pretty much anything I dip my feet in, pretty soon I'm swimming, and pretty soon I'm saving people's lives, right? Because because that's how I'm built, right? That's how I'm built, and that's pretty cool. And to come to that realization and go, that's actually pretty cool, instead of being like, every time it's like, here's the bar, and then the better I do, the better I have to do. The better I do, the better I have to do. You can instead be like, well, this is fun. The better I do, it's like this game, you know? Mm-hmm. And if you recognize that, like, if you don't achieve, like, it really bothers you, it's like, that's because you're set up for success. I'm built, I'm bred, I'm made to be successful. I'm made to, when I set out to do a thing, I'm made to get it done. And that's fun. And that's the thing that I'm made to play, right? And like that all of that software is now just getting intelligent, because it's like, wait a second. So, but then, how do you be successful in being unsuccessful? And that's where you're trying to like unwind, right? But like, you don't really have to unwind that thing. You just have to understand that software is for a specific thing. And then you're building this other software that exists simultaneously. One doesn't have to be torn down for the other to exist, that exists simultaneously. Like, okay, so when I lose, I take it and I learn, right? And when you learn, you don't lose. You know, so like when you win or learn,
it's a lesson or a blessing.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Exactly. Everything's a lesson or a blessing. And if it's a lesson, then it's a blessing. It's like the stupidest thing I ever made up in my whole life, but I'd say it all the time. Lessons and blessings. That's a lesson, which means it's a blessing. Everything's good by that logic, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. One of the I don't know if I have a right word for these things, but it's one of those things where you're like, driving, you're in the shower or whatever. I mean,
driving in the shower. I get it.
Sounds like fun. Yeah, I don't know if epiphany is the right word or if it's realization or something like that. Those kind of seem like too big a word sometimes, but I was having one of those moments where I realized, I was like, oh, it's all small things. You know, like, maybe one of the reasons that the big things don't feel like you said, the mountaintop, right? You know, like, you get the trophy, you get the belt, you get the recognition, you get the award, you get whatever, and you don't feel it. It's like, oh, it's because it's not about that at all. And one of the funny things, as I was thinking about that, is like, you never really, like, the big thing never happens all at once, right? Like, you don't go into a gym and become a black belt because you stayed there for 10 hours and rolled for 10 hours straight and subbed everyone in the gym, and then they give you your black belt. A black belt is years and years and years of small moments where sometimes you do really good and then sometimes you get your ass kicked and all these things. And there's, you know, using that as an example, there's a million things that are like that, but the big thing almost never happens all at once. It's just a combination of like small thing after small thing after small thing. And so one of the ways that's helped me is, it's just like, it seems like if I'm able to like when I've been able to fall in love with those small things, it's the freaking best, man. Because I like, you know, driving,
because it's only small things.
Exactly.
That's what jiu-jitsu is. Jiu-jitsu is inches. It's the difference between a blue belt's Kimura and a black belt's Kimura. It's not like, oh, you use your legs, you know, like, right. It's like, no, this is like, it's like, So what I do is I throttle forward this much with my wrist, and it makes it absolutely, just like 10 times worse, way harder to get out of, way easier to hold on to. It's like, but it took me 10 years to learn to do this, and that's all there is these small. Ryan Holiday one time said, I think epiphanies are bullshit. And that is like one of the first things I heard him say. And I was like, that's not true. I have epiphanies all the time. He's like, it's not that like all of these things hit all at once. It was all of these things. And then there was sort of this butterfly that broke the camel's back or whatever.
Sharp butterfly. Straw that broke the camel's back.
The straw that broke the camel's back? What's the butterfly thing?
Butterfly effect?
No, there's like the butterfly and then it breaks.
A cocoon? I don't know. I like the butterfly breaking the camel's back.
Yeah, the butterfly who broke
the kamikaze butterfly.
It was like the camel was too damn loaded, and the butterfly it was too much, right? That's more of what an epiphany is. It's like oh, one more thing. You're like, wait a minute. All of this data points to this one kind of realization that I think I just had one on this podcast. I was like defending scarcity, and then I'm like, wait a minute, I think I might be target fixating on like bad things happening. Which means you're going to run into bad things. Good. Not good.
Not good.
I have to address that, but I'll enjoy the process of doing so.
Yeah. Yeah, it's interesting to me to think about how that's a small thing also.
What?
Right, like epiphanies. Just like we're talking about how a goal isn't, you don't get a black belt in a day because you rolled really good and subbed a lot of people. That epiphanies might be the same thing too, where it's a lot of little moments where you have a great conversation or you see a cool billboard or you like all these things, and then it just bubbles over into, hey dude, here's this piece of knowledge that you're going to go live the rest of your life with.
Yeah. I had a thought a second ago.
I've got this has been in the back of my mind as we're thinking about it, but I've listened, to podcasts, read a handful of the stuff that you've read and all that. And one of the things that I love to hear about is like the Heartbreaker Tour that you went on. And where I think that connects is because it's, the Heartbreaker Tour, I
went on both.
Right. But it seems like that might've been a phase where instead of doing the small things and letting the answers come, it seemed like you were like searching for them and maybe kicking that door down. But what was that phase like, and what did you get out of that?
Which one?
Let's start with the Heartbreaker Tour, because I think it's a cool like mix from maybe one chapter ending and another one beginning.
Yeah, the Heartbreaker Tour was not labeled when I signed up for it. It didn't.
There's no flyer.
I wasn't like, yeah, that sounds cool. The Heartbreaker Tour was like, my life was just kind of turned into a country song. I was pretty like happy-go-lucky, just pretty fun, happy, joyful all of the time. Just wanted to cheer everybody up all the time. Made a lot of jokes. I was fat for a while, which when you're fat, you got to be funny or you got to be something. Yeah. You know what I mean? Like, and it was great because you have to develop sort of this personality that makes you attractive, that makes you like magnetize, like that makes people want to be around you, which I learned growing up in pawn shops, right? Like when you make a relationship, your $10 goes a lot farther, right? When you create a connection with a human, that's different. And so I've always just loved human connection. I love being like, I can create I don't have any money, but I can create value with me being a person, right? Me being this thing that you need. And also you can get money. It's way easier to get money than it is to get a personality where you can help people recognize their own value. You can help people recognize you can offer a perspective that brings people from like everything is ruined to everything's fine. Mm-hmm. That's not like, how much money would someone pay if they could go from like everything is ruined to everything's fine? The amount of people that I know with more money than know what to do with and absolutely cannot figure out how to make things be fine is wild. It's actually like, I do think there's such a thing as too much money. I think if it costs you your peace, you can't afford it. And sometimes money costs someone their peace. They literally can't afford to have the amount of, not necessarily money, but the amount of wealth that they have, the amount of responsibility they have. They cannot afford it. And it's wild to think that someone can't afford abundance, right? That's a weird thing to think about, but I see it. Anyway, the Heartbreaker Tour, I just rolled for a long time, just being just joyful, and everything was cool. We'd figure it out. And I was very much I liked to fix things. I liked to serve. I liked to be that guy. And when you find that your strength, or where you find yourself being the most valuable, is fixing things or helping someone along, or just when you find that your thing is service, you find somebody who needs a lot of service, right? Like naturally you kind of like, I can be the most valuable to you because you need a lot of help.
You're finding the fixer-uppers.
Yeah. And so anyway, I was married to someone who, I liked to try to help. I liked to be the guy who's like, oh, I'm the guy. I constantly have these opportunities to be the guy, to be supportive, to be patient where most people wouldn't be patient, to listen where most people wouldn't listen, to be quiet when you're being loud, to be calm when you're being violent. Like I can be this yin to this yang. Which is just such a scary thing to me because I see people fall for it all the time. It's like, well, I'm pretty good at taking bullets to the chest. I have this special talent, and you're like, you should shoot me. I'm really, actually, dude, when in the 7th grade, I realized that my forehead, all of this is completely numb.
Okay.
I feel no pain there. I could just crack myself. I'm not going to do it because I learned my lesson.
Right.
But I could just crack myself as hard as I could in the head right now, and I would not feel. It would really hurt my neck right now because I have a bulged disc. But I would feel no pain in my head. And I learned that when I was in the 7th grade. I don't know if something like my skull just grew too much or what happened exactly. But if you ever get in a street fight with me and I'm headbutting people, I'm okay.
Cool.
But I learned this, and then I started just bouncing my head off of everything. I would slam it into lockers. I would like dent lockers and be like, yeah, see, nothing, guys. I'm crazy. You ever see that Key and Peele where he's like, I'm loco. Yeah. that was me. And it's like, no, you're kind of just stupid. But anyway, you find that thing where you're like, wow, this is my gift and my value. And then you find a thing that makes you feel like you're valuable. So anyway, my relationship, my marriage was a lot like that. And so that eventually disintegrated, and it went as pretty much as poor. Just imagine like pretty much as bad as it can go. That's kind of how that went. And then also in that time, my dog Lola, I got her paw tattooed on my leg. It says "Love over Loss." My dog Lola died, which is why I don't have another dog, because I just was, I don't know. No one in my family died. Like when I was a kid, my grandpa just died this year, and it just knocks me off my freaking tracks, man. Yeah. And I just wasn't good. It wasn't a part of my upcoming. I really think like it's actually important. Like as kids, we need pets that die. We need fish that die. We need pets that die. We need family members who die. Like going through that process, like watching my nephews go to my grandpa's funeral and be like, so
now what?
Yeah, grandpa's gone, huh? Well, it's like, okay, that's a part of, they're becoming, right? But when you sort of like are like fully formed, I'm like mid-20s, 25, and like I have not experienced loss. Then you lose your wife, and you lose a best friend, and you lose a dog. And then I had business partners that had a falling out that were also my best friends. Yeah. And then there's financial ties to all that, and I'm already as low as I can go. It's like I'm rock bottom, and I'm digging. Like I'm I keep going. Yeah. And and then my aunt died, who I was really close with. We talked like on Facebook Messenger all the time, but she lived in Arizona. Okay. And I was actually on my way. Like I skipped going to see her because I was going to go see her, and then she was in the hospital. And I was like, oh, I'll catch you next time. And then she died. Yeah, it was just Heartbreaker Tour. Yeah. And the Heartmaker. So all that happened, and then I, eventually I was going to stay married at one point. Like I had this whole idea, this poetic idea for my life, which I tend to do. I'm like, this would be poetic. This would be a beautiful story, which is You don't have to do that, folks. You really don't have to do that. Just go live your life. The story will create itself. It'll be better than anything you could possibly write. But I was like, I'm going to stay married because I said till death do us part. And when I said till death do us part, I meant till death. And I'm not dead yet, so I'm not leaving, right? I'm staying in this thing because I promised. And that's what till death is from in my Instagram. Because I was like, this is going to be my story. I'm going to be married because I said I would be. Just because she left, I'm not leaving, right? And then, you know, eventually you realize, like, that's actually not what a marriage is, dude. You know, you're not, it takes two. And
two people stand up there on the day.
So eventually, I, you know, signed these papers that I was reluctant to sign for a long time. And got on my motorcycle and rode out of Wyoming in the freezing cold. You've heard that story, I'm sure. And I met this dude in Vegas who was this, like, biker, your quintessential biker looking dude with a do-rag, and he was this big fat Canadian guy. But I was like sitting on this, I feel like I've told these stories so many times, but I just like almost lost my wallet in Vegas, which had literally all the money to my name in it in cash. I dropped it off. I got pulled over on a very busy off ramp. I took my wallet out, I set it down, I gave him my ID. And then he gave me my ID back, and I was just nervous because I'd never been out in the world at this point. This is a brand new kid from Wyoming, like out all by himself, like getting pulled over by the big police. You know, it's just scary, right? I was nervous, so I put my ID back in my pocket and drove off, and my wallet fell down right there. And so then I got back to my hotel, and I went to get my key, which was in my wallet. And I'm like, oh my gosh, my wallet. I just dropped my wallet off in a busy intersection in Las Vegas, and it has all of my money in it. Like, you are the dumbest, you know, with the kind of language that went through my, like, as if things couldn't get any worse. You go and do this and totally redeem yourself. So, and I rode back and it was there. Just like, thank you, God. Like, and I was just like, but I was like the adrenaline, like the roller coaster. So I went back, and right across the street from the hotel I was staying at is this biker bar called Hogs and Heifers. If you guys never been to old Vegas, go down to Hogs and Heifers. You'll have it's a time. It's a thing. But anyway, I just sat down. I parked my bike, and I just sat down on the bench. I was like, ugh. Basically like this moment of like, what am I doing?
Big adrenaline dump, like everything.
Like I'm like, I just almost lost. Like, not only have I lost everything, but everything that I have is is on this bike and in that wallet. And I just like, you were this close to just losing this wallet. You should have. Right. Absolutely ridiculous that wallet was still there. There was homeless people 10 feet from it, just sitting at the bottom, 10 feet from my wallet. And it was 30 minutes that it sat there. Mm-hmm. Just wild. And I was sitting there, and then this guy who's like facing the opposite direction, and I'm just sitting there kind of like doing this, like, oh my gosh, like, what am I doing? I'm a long ways from home. I don't even know what home is, you know, who you know, just like full, like, dark night of the soul kind of vibes. And this guy's like, who hurt you? Like, just this voice, you know, I thought it was God for a second. And I look over at this guy, like, what do you know? You know, like, and I was like, what do you mean? He's like, is that your bike? I looked at my bike, and it's all packed up with, like, I had all my winter stuff, right? I was actually going to show Drew the jacket or like the coat and stuff that I rode out with, but it's like big Russian. It's made for like Russian winters. But nice. Anyway, it had all, you know, it was packed up with a lot of stuff. He's like, is that your bike? I'm like, yeah. He's like, you from Wyoming? Like, you're a long ways from home. You're by yourself. And this isn't exactly what he said, but this is the premise. He's like, you're a long ways from home. You're by yourself. And you're sitting on a bench by yourself looking up at the sky. Yeah. I'm saying somebody hurt you, right? And I'm like, and just that moment where I'm like, you know, like, you don't know my whole story, obviously, but you know the story line by what you can see. You can see that I'm packed up on a motorcycle, I'm by myself, and I'm out here exploring. I'm a long ways from home. And you know that I've been hurt, you know that my heart hurts. And I'm like, and then I just kind of told him, I just like, it was like, well, here's what's going on. Yeah. And he's like, yeah. And he's like, well, we're all out here searching for something. Like, there's a reason. And I'm like, you too? I thought you were just like, hell yeah, brother. You know, like I was like, wow, these people have more depth to them than they let on. Yeah. This motorcycle community has more depth then they let on. And we actually have this culture where we cover it up with like tough guy stuff and skulls and black clothes. You know, it's like, I'm like, this is weird, man. People should, these are some of the most poetic, some of the most deep, some of the most sensitive people that exist. And that's why people build these walls. That's why they, you know, they go lift a bunch of weights and they join a club so they don't have to ever be vulnerable. You know, I don't want to speak to no club people. Don't come hang me. I don't want to speak to why you joined your club. I don't know. But what I have found is that these people are very sensitive. They feel very, very deeply, and they try to shut these feelings off. They try to block them out, or they try to make it so that no one can reach them. Right. That's why, like, some of the bonds of brotherhood in clubs and some of the, like, very special because it's all they got, you know, like, but they're very sensitive people. You'd think they're like hard people that have no soul and they have no, and I just realized, like, oh no, these people are out here for a reason. They're out searching for something. And most of them, like, the reason that we get excited about motorcycles, or a lot of people get excited about motorcycles, is because every character, the coolest characters that we've seen growing up, they rode a motorcycle. That was part of the thing. Like Drew, you know, he's like, when I first met him, he's like, I want to get a bike. He's like, you know, I've done the guitar thing. Like, I can kill people with my hands, you know, like I've kind of done all this stuff that I envisioned when I was young and small. And he's like, I'm big now, and I know jujitsu, and I know kung fu, and, you know, and I can play the guitar, and I can, you know, I can make a girl bat her eyes at me, but I don't have a motorcycle. So I just realized, like, this motorcycle is a part of them trying to live their life's best story. They're trying to achieve sort of a good story with their life. And so I'm like, well, we should have, like, the brand should be about that, encouraging people to live their life's best story. And we should tear down these silly walls where, like, you have to be tough guy stuff, you know, and act hard and, like, not say anything and, like, you know, flex your muscles and do that thing. We should make it, like, because actually that guy who's doing all that, like, you know, maybe wanted to do ballet or something, you know what I mean? I don't know, like, whatever. There's a story behind why he built those walls. Like, the biggest walls guard the most sensitive hearts. So you see this giant castle and you go, that's the, you know, the guy who lives in that castle must just be a hard ass bad dude, right? It's like, well, he wouldn't have built those big walls if he wasn't sensitive. People who aren't like, people who are less sensitive are a lot more just like, yeah, everything.
Right. That's a picket fence right there.
Right. Yeah. And these big walls, like, well, he's protecting something that he's very scared of getting hurt. And so anyway, that, you know, so in that moment, he's like, he's the one who said, sounds like you've been on a Heartbreaker Tour, which made a lot of sense to me. Cause I was, you know, my whole goal, my whole thing as a kid was I wanted to play music. I wanted to be on tour and I wanted to play punk music. And that was like my whole vision for my whole life. And so the idea of a themed tour made a ton of sense to me. I'm like, okay, well, the rest of my life, which was going to be about 5 years at that time, the rest of my 5 years is going to be the Heartmaker Tour. I just want to go make people's hearts and make my own heart. I want to just go give to people. I want to be a light in their day. I want to go tell them, you know, I want to tell someone they look great in that dress because nobody said it because they're scared to whatever. I'm going to tell a guy, hey dude, you look jacked. I'm going to hit like on everybody's stuff. You know, like, I'm just going to give everywhere that I can give. And I want to make a Heartmaker Tour. I want to help offer people perspective. I want to tell people, like, hey, that thing you're thinking about doing that you won't do until you won't do when you're inspired. You'll do when you're desperate for it. Do it. Just go, you know? And that was the theme of the Heartmaker Tour. I just wanted to make hearts.
At that time, did GoFast exist during that time?
Yeah, GoFast was like at that time, GoFast was like, it was sort of like a between friends thing. You know, a lot of friends have like a, you know, a little thing that's like their thing, right?
Yeah.
And but it was, you know, we had some designs and we you know, there's t-shirts, but it wasn't like there wasn't community, there wasn't culture, there wasn't a brand, there was a logo.
Yeah.
You know, it was really like during those times where it was sort of like, okay, this is going to be my journal.
Yeah.
You know, like the thoughts that I have, the realizations that I come to, because most people, I hope, they're not going to go do this thing. I don't want them to do this. I don't want this for them. You know, like, I'll go do it and I'll report my findings. You know, I'll go through this work, this heart work, all these feelings, and then I'll go and I'll tell you guys what I came up with. Like, hey, here's the thought of the day. Here's this thing. And it started getting traction. People started paying attention to it. I was hanging out with a lot of people who had a lot of, you know, I was like through relationships, right? And I didn't have a lot to offer these people, but I'd offer what I could. You know, like I'll take photos or I'll document something or I'll just make this thing fun. I'll add value to the group by being part of the group. And I would join groups and I would be a part of it. And I'd be a part of it. And I'd be a part of this scene and that scene, the, you know, cafe racer scene and the, you know, Harley stunt crew scene and the chopper scene. Like, and I would just hang out with everybody. And I realized like all of these people are just trying to live their life's best story, and they think their life's best story involves a chopper, and you think your life's best story involves, you know, dirt bikes or whatever the thing is. And it far transcends motorcycles. Like, we're not even about motorcycles. I don't even really like motorcycles that much. I just like the way they make me feel. You know, I like the head space and the heart space that they put me in. My hands are distracted, my ass is planted, my eyes are entertained by a constant changing scenery, and I get to be a part of the scenery. And I get to think about things. You know, it's like this, it's as far as like meditation, the closest thing that I've really ever, it's not like when my eyes are closed and I'm seated and I'm on a cliff somewhere. Like, that actually is super distracting to me. I try to do that, you know, and I try to like, okay, empty your mind, and every thought is just a cloud just going by.
Let it go by.
Let it go by. Hello, sorrow. Goodbye. You know? And I love that. I do that too, but just a motorcycle, I'm just like, okay. It always feels like, okay, I can finally like take this big thing that I have to think through all the pieces. I have to dissect and figure it all out. I can put this in the crock pot to cook now, instead of like, and now a new thing, and like, you're trying to cook that way, where you're like, you crack the egg, you throw it in, but then you immediately throw it out and you throw something else in. Right, like, nothing's actually getting cooked here, and there's food everywhere. Yeah. You know, which is how my brain usually is. Yeah.
That's one of my favorite ideas is the idea of forced presence. And it's something that I felt a huge maybe gap in as soon as I got done playing sports, was that for 5 days a week, I knew that there would be at least a 2-hour block where I was focused on one thing and the rest of the world just disappeared. And I made it very well known that people shouldn't talk to me about anything besides if it was football, playing football, or if it was wrestling. Like, we're not talking about anything other than what we're doing right now. And what I liked about that is like the same thing that I love about jiu-jitsu and the same thing that I love about boxing. That when somebody's trying to punch your head off your shoulders or take your arm off or take your leg off, it forces you to be focused just on that one thing. And it sounds like motorcycles might be another one of those forced presence things that people can do to be like, well, I better not crash this thing, and I have a destination I'm going to. I'll say, like, for me, man, like, for me, I can't do that thing. That forced presence thing is I have to do hacked presence. What do you mean? Like, just, I'm super ADHD. I'm super, and I don't even like that term because I feel like everybody is, you know, I feel like there's a spectrum. But whatever I am, whatever the way my brain works, and I think everyone's a little different. We all have this spectrum, and you have a bunch of unique ingredients that make you, and that's beautiful. But yeah, so I have to hack the thing. Like, I have to, like, and the motorcycle's the best hack. It's just, if you are like that, if you struggle to like sit down and think about one thing, because I'm sure anybody who watches this podcast, I guarantee you, I haven't been paying attention. No pun intended here, but I guarantee you it's like bing, 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 because it takes me a while, because I'm, like I said, like, my kitchen's a mess. There's food everywhere because I'm going, and eventually I want to cook all these things, right? Right. But I have a million ingredients, and like, there's more ingredients coming in than you can even manage, right? Like, you can't even, like, the shelves are stocked, everything's full, we can't take any more. It's like, well, I got more. So, yeah, you've got one hot pan. This is my truck, and I'm unloading it right now. Yeah. Like, well, it's so yeah. So I kind of have to hack that thing. Like, I have to have.
Yeah, I have to figure that out. And the motorcycle, as far as like thinking through something or like a forced presence, I'm going to go for a ride, and it would take a while, right? Like it can't be like, it's not like a 30-minute ride. It's not like I'm going to ride to the grocery store, like, so I can think about something. It's like I go to Mexico, you know, like, and I did that for a while. I haven't ridden like that for the past couple years. In 2021, like last year, I bought a bike I had a bike in Portland, and I decided to bring it home. Mm-hmm. So I did a ride from Portland and went up and saw the Grind Hard boys in Idaho, and then got a weird job. Actually, my life is goofy, but I got a job. Do you know who Tucker Wetmore is? Have you heard of Tucker Wetmore?
The artist?
Yeah.
Yeah.
He's number one right now. This is crazy. He's number one. This is like a year. Well, I guess it was this year. It was like June, and they hired me as a photographer to go on their tour.
Nice.
And he was opening for Cameron Marlowe, and I'm hanging out in the green room with him, and like during that time, it was like real time, he surpassed Cameron on like monthly streams, right? Which is kind of like, it's awesome, right? But it's sort of like, oh, so the opening act just beat the main act.
Was it something everyone was aware of when it happened?
Oh yeah, they were like, this is great. They're all kind of like, this is crazy. Everything's crazy. They had 2 songs out.
Wow.
They had 2 songs out, and they're getting they had 5 million monthly listeners, which is bananas, you know?
Right.
The 2 songs. And now, yeah, he has right now, he was number 1 on the country music charts, which is crazy.
So cool.
Anyway, so that's how rides go for me, right? I say yes a lot. I go ride motorcycle. I went up and saw the Grind Hard Plumbing guys. Do you know Grind Hard Plumbing? Are you familiar with those guys?
I don't.
They make like hot rod Barbie cars.
Oh, nice.
They made an off-road Tesla that we broke. Actually, we went and took into the desert. We like drove it through the water, through this like river crossing. Like, I don't know, it's an electric car, but like it was up to the windows in water. Like, I guess we'll see, right? And then, and we drove real slow, and I'm like, yeah, that thing did it no problem. I'm like, do it again faster. So we go back through, and it went too high, and it melted the battery, killed the car, and I was like, not my car. Gosh, I'm the worst, dude. I like to push people I like to just push things. But anyway, all that to say, motorcycle helps me find presence, and it also, like, it is dude, if you want a story, go on a motorcycle trip. I mean, you don't have to, like, literally, people plan these big motors. Oh, we're gonna go to Ushuaia, you know, we're gonna go to the North freaking pole and meet Santa Claus. Like, it doesn't matter. Just be like, I'm going to go have a taco at this place in South Dakota, but it's 5 hours away, and something's going to happen, right? I'm either going to have a thought, or I'm going to see an eagle's going to fly next to me, and it's going to fly next to me for like two miles. And I'm going to have like this most profound experience. I'm like, why is this eagle flying next to me? And who is it? And is this an ancestor of mine? And what are you trying to tell me? And this is the most beautiful moment ever, and no one's even here to witness. And I can't film it with my camera because I can't make content out of this. It's just me. I'm in my emotions, you know?
Right.
Or you know, you'll be in a stop at a gas station, and someone will ask you something or whatever, like, or you'll crash, you know, and you'll scrape everything, and like, I don't know what it is, but you are just, it's such a catalyst for a great story. It's such a catalyst for just self-discovery and discovery of the world. Like, I know, you know, David Ramirez has a song, says, I know this land like the back of my hand, and he's saying it because he's been a touring musician. And if you're a touring musician, you know, Drew has a song that says, tell me your town, and I've played there, and you know, like, you know the land, right? You know the spot. If you can mention any town to him, he can be like, oh yeah, this, and they have a great this, and if you go there from here and you want to be careful, you know, like, he'll tell you all the things. Yeah. For me, I wanted to be a touring musician, right? Like, that's what this guitar is about. Like, and I became a touring poet, really, right? Like, I became a touring. I want to go learn about the world and then distill it into these thoughts, and then share these thoughts with the community. And to be honest, at this point, like, it's so far beyond motorcycle people. Like, GoFast Don't Die is not for motorcycle people. GoFast Don't Die is for people who are seeking their life's best story. And it just happened to be that my life's best story, and like our life's, you know, people that were involved a motorcycle, and involves a motorcycle. But most people's do, right?
did having GoFast exist, even though it was small in comparison now to what it, or small in comparison then to what it is now? Did having that exist and having some kind of like a container where it was like, oh, I can go do this stuff with my life. I can go put these things out into the world. I can have these experiences, report back. Did having a vehicle to actually like share that through and kind of have a platform with, did that help with that journey at all?
It's both, like they say, like, if you do what you love for work, you'll never work a day in your life. That there's a balance there where, like, if you do what you love for work, you may never do what you love again. Right. You may work all of the time. Right. And so what do you love to do? What part of that work do you love to do? So GoFast now is a business. Right? Like, we have orders that have to go out, and when people don't get their orders, and for me, when I hear people, they're like, who are like, hey, it's been 4 days and I still don't have my order. I'm like, you cannot wear our stuff, dude. You either need to fix your attitude, or I do not want you wearing our stuff out into the world, because people will start thinking that people like you represent, and they're going to see you wearing our thing. And our thing is not that thing that you're doing.
Right.
Our thing speaks to that thing you're doing, but you need to peace in the process, joy in the journey, fella. You need to, like, right?
Boy, do I have a shirt for you.
Yeah, and I've got a shirt for everything, dude. Whatever your problem is, seriously, name a problem. I have a shirt for you, right? I have been through whatever the thing is, and I've got a philosophy around it, and I've boiled it down, and Dan has made some beautiful artwork, so it slapped it on a shirt. You paid $35 for it, and it hasn't been there for 4 days because you bought it from our local place. And what happens is we get an order and we print it out on a piece of paper, and then we go and find your shirt, and then we fold it up for you, and we put it in a package. And that's Cassie doing that. She's the one who got all these plants. Like, it's beautiful to me. I'm like, these are real people. This is real stuff. This is not a business.
Yeah.
This is a thing where, like, we're commemorating a commitment that you've made to live a better life. And we're giving you a token. We're giving you something, like you said, you're like, I want to put this on every shirt. I want to put this anywhere I can. We're giving you a thing that is going to remind you about that commitment. But if your buying process is not, I'm committing to be a better person, and I want this thing to remind me to be a better person, right? Then I don't buy it. Like, don't buy it. Like, I want this to be a club. I want this to be a membership thing. I don't want this to be, I bought a shirt and I'm the cool guy because I wear the newest shirt. Fashion, like, it's lifestyle over streetwear. I have no interest. Streetwear is cool, right? But GoFast is not streetwear. We're not trying to make the coolest clothes. We're trying to take an idea and get people to follow it. We're trying to take an idea and say, hey, here's a reminder, risk happy. It says risk and it says happy. Both of them exist. Speed is a number, fast is a feeling, right? So, like, yeah, so I get like, I'm like, you're missing the point. And there comes a point where, like, the business outgrows the brand, right? Like, so people are buying, they saw an ad. And I'm like, I don't even want to run an ad, I love the idea of hacking the ad space to bring consciousness to advertising.
Right.
I love that idea. I don't like the idea of using consciousness to sell a product, and those things are kind of the same thing in practice. Like, what you actually see, those are the same things, but the intention behind it really, really matters. So all that to say, like, yes and no. If we have employees, we have employees that we have to, we pay, and we want to pay, obviously. And we have expenses, and we have, like, there could cost money to run a business. So we have to sell things to pay the people, right?
Yeah.
But I'm like, I don't want to sell things. I'm not trying to sell anything here. I'm trying to give you the elixir of life. You know what I mean? Like, and I want everybody to have it. That's why we put out the Only Someday emails. They're free, just go read those. Don't buy anything. Please don't buy anything. There will never be anything for sale there. It's just an offering. This is our culture. This is our community. This is our message. This is our brand. And if you resonate with this, cool. And if you want, a lot of times people want, like, brands move culture. Brands make culture, right? It's not like if people wanted to save the world, if they wanted to solve the nation, like, culture eats strategy for breakfast. It's a Peter Drucker quote. If our country, instead of making legislature, says you can't do that anymore, we would go create culture and make it cool to not do that anymore, we'd win.
Yep.
You know, and instead we make a rule that says like, you can't do this. And what does anyone who's counterculture or anyone who thinks for themselves, don't tell me not to do anything. Anything you tell me I can't do, immediately I want to do it, even if I didn't before you told me I can't, right? I see a speed limit and I'm like, a speed limit sign, and I'm just like, who do you think you are? Who do you think you are? Like, you know what I mean? It's just like, and all I'm seeing, like the guidelines on the podcast, like these are kind of guidelines, like things that we might think of. That's how I think of speed limit signs. Mm-hmm. You know, like, well, generally, you know, this is an 80 zone. Like, okay, well, I'll stick between 80 and 100, whatever. Yeah. Anyway, so where'd it go? We started at essentially, did GoFast give you a vehicle or an excuse or a reason to be able to keep doing those things and making those stories? Yeah. And so like you look at your motivation, that whole thing, like, well, what part of the work do you love? If you continue to do the part of the people, the culture, a guy texted me yesterday. He's like, I'm down 75 pounds and my baby's crawling right now. Right.
Dang, yeah.
And he's a biker dude, you know, he's a big tough, you know, they call him Tatanka, you know, he's a combat vet, you know, like just like most people would see him and be like, that dude has no soul and he just doesn't feel anything and he just kill you, you know, kind of vibe. Right. No, dude, that is the cuddliest, freaking sweetest man alive. You know what I mean? And so, and there's a bazillion of those. All these guys whose nickname is Torque Wrench or whatever, like they're sensitive. They're sensitive dudes. This is the reality. Because that's the other funny thing is I go out there wearing pink neon clothes and having a man bun and just being the most metro dude in the tough guy motorcycle space, but I could also beat all of you up,
right?
You know, so it's like this really unique thing where like we all have that thing where like we think you have to act tough, you know, because most of that is sort of rooted in insecurity. You're playing that role, you know, like we're gonna go to the boxing tonight. Yeah, everybody in there is gonna be like, yeah, I'm a destroyer, you know, like
I just see red, bro.
Exactly.
I blacked out and he was on the floor.
Right. Exactly. You don't want that. I've always wanted to jiu-jitsu, but like, you know, if you start choking me, dude, like I might wake up and everyone's just dead. God, totally, dude. That's cool. Yeah. So it's an interesting thing, but it goes back to like, what type of work do you love? I love the people. I love challenging culture. I love going to a culture that says you have to be this and you have to be that, and saying, no, you do not. You actually like are fully free to express yourself in any way that you feel like. Ride a pink motorcycle, you know, like do whatever you feel like doing because it's your story and it has an ending. You know, no one gets out alive. Live accordingly is one of our phrases, and that's it. People forget, like, hey, you die, you know, so like you're you know, congratulations, you kept up the act the whole time. Is that what you want as your eulogy? He kept up the act the whole time. Yeah. Never actually let anybody see him, you know, never actually let himself see him, never let himself like have the chance to just be who he was. That is the saddest story. You know, like, and that you see it every single day, all over the place. Everybody's acting like they are this thing that they're not. I was on a sales call with a guy yesterday, and he's like kind of acting like he's like, he was a nice guy, but he was acting like he's super rich, like super wealthy, right? Like, it's weird that you're on a sales, like you're trying to sell me on something, on this thing, when you live in opulence. It's weird that you would choose this, and I just don't like anyway. All that's, you find out what part of the work that you love and stick to that part, but don't let the other thing outgrow it or outshine it, because then you'll end up doing the thing when you have to, you know, I keep bringing up Drew because he's our mutual friend and he's in the room, but ask him about singing songs that were very personal to him in front of a crowd that is, you know. Drew, are you in here? Just come here real quick. Will you be a guest? We do a guest spot.
Sure. We need a celeb shot real quick.
We've had three. We've had three. Were you sleeping?
I was entertaining the idea.
Okay, we're talking about. So the question was, does having a vehicle basically for your message help? Like, you having a business, right? So you've got Satsang. And I've got GoFast, and my message to the world gets to the world through GoFast, right? And so does that help? Is that a helpful thing, or is that a hindrance thing? And I was talking about when they say like if you do what you love for work, you'll never work another day in your life.
That's not true.
It's right. And so I'm trying to explain that thing, because you think that, right? Like, well, yeah, I'll just do this but the reality is there's another part of that thing. And when the thing that you love becomes a business, you might end up the thing that you love becomes your work instead of, which is terrifying, because then what do you do? How do you do that thing that you love? So I made the reference that, if you've ever played music that is your soul being vulnerable, like it's your journal. It's just a very public journal, and you've made music out of it, which is a beautiful thing. And when people first hear it, where you first play it, and it feels great that someone sees it. But then there's a night where like, I really don't feel like playing this tonight, and people are like, dance kind of thing. I just wanted you to talk about that.
Yeah, I think for me the big thing is that I just have to like.
If you ever used a microphone, you have to put it pretty close to your mouth.
I'm new to the microphone thing. I'm actually tipping your table over to do this, but no, I think for me it's like having a conscious practice for it not to lose its sacredness, right? So there's always going to be the work part, that like playing a show when you don't want to play a show, or having conference calls about your journal entries because you're turning it into merchandise. But making sure when you're writing those journal entries or writing the song that part is still sacred. Because ultimately that's mine, and your journal is yours, and your journal is yours. And keeping that sacred and special, and then the vehicle of sharing it, of like, okay, well, I had this special sacred thing where this came through me. Then knowing once it leaves the bedroom, once it leaves the journal and makes its way onto a record or a t-shirt, that then my mind frame has to shift on, okay, well, now it's a piece of this work. But for me, it's taken a lot of practice. Like you've, I think, seen more than anyone, I have these like little mini nervous breakdowns every year where I get very tired of touring and stuff like that. And then I get home and I'm like, I don't even want to touch a guitar. And then I'll go through the biggest writing outpour of my life 3 days later after I said, I never want to play again. Then I just like can't stop writing. And it's because it's what I am. I have to form to know. It's like how I make sense of everything is by creating. So just keeping the creation process sacred.
So you think that the creation is the lead thing, and then satsang is just like where it happens to live once you're done with it?
Yeah, the journaling part, the writing of the songs is like the gift, and then the sharing, it's the work, and it just is work. And there's going to be parts of it that are really fun and really special, and there's going to be parts of it you don't want to do. Like anytime you make your passion your occupation.
Talk about the like when it's like, okay, I have a show and I really don't feel like going and playing, but like you're playing but this is your gift to the world. This is the thing that you're called to do, and you have to go do it because it's your work, right? And it's almost like what you owe for the gift you're given. But talk about sort of the heartbreak that is having to go share that thing on the night that you don't feel like it.
Yeah, it's pretty much the worst part it's the most fucked up juxtaposition ever. I was given this really beautiful lifestyle because of that sharing aspect of it. But yeah, it breaks my heart to have to, it's not like, I don't feel like lifting weights. Well, you go to lift weights. It's like, I don't feel like sharing tonight. I'm spiritually not in a place where I feel like sharing. But I have to go share because there's 500 people here and they paid to come see me, and a bunch of them probably traveled. So it's this huge internal wrestling match. Usually it works out because by the third or fourth song, I'm like, okay, I'm having fun. And I kind of like go into it, but it's really hard because it's like, I think when it comes to performing, you start to get dehumanized, and I don't feel like a human anymore. I'm like a fucking monkey, It's like, I don't care what you're going through. Dance, monkey. Mm-hmm. We're here to watch you dance. Yeah, it's the worst part of my job because sometimes I don't even want to leave the hotel. And I don't want to be around people at all, let alone stand in front of them and sing for 90 minutes, But it's a trade-off too, It's like, I feel like the thing that I always remind myself is, one, I've been blessed with a gift to create music that helps people with their stories, and helps them get through really hard things. And service work doesn't always feel good. And sometimes we don't want to do it, but it's like, there's just a responsibility there that it's like, yeah, you're not always going to feel like it, but God gave me this thing to help, and I have to go help. And in exchange for that, you know, I'm not on a roof 12 hours a day anymore. I'm not pouring concrete. I'm not, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
There's people with really shitty jobs, and their trade-off is, I hate my life 40 to 50 hours a week, but I'll acquire this currency so I can go see Sad Song play. And that will make my life better. So it's like, I always remind myself of that too, that like most people don't love what they do all of the time, but they do it so they can do things they love. And when I think about that, it makes me like, you have to go show up, dude, because survey says 99% of people don't like their job. So they're giving you their precious time and money to come see you. So put your shit aside for 90 minutes and then you can go back to being a mopey, sad poet.
Awesome. We're going to take a little pee break and microphone reattachment break. We'll be right back, everybody.
We should
okay. Yeah, okay. I got to pee now.
So I think, you know, the question is super valid and it's super relevant. And I hope anybody who hears this thing is like, figure out the part of the work that you love, because like if you want to make it a business, or if you want sort of this quote unquote platform to do it, if it is a platform that you're beholden to someone else, or that you require something from someone else, it's going to require something of you. And when you are called to do that thing that feels like it's like, no, this is what I do for free. This is what I do because I love it. It's like, but you have to do it right now, because whatever motivation it is, dude, it's just like, for me, for I feel like almost any creative, like, you know, what was one of your questions? There was a question about creativity. Oh, l'art pour l'art, which is French for art's sake. It was one of our On Some Days. You had that on there. When you're called to create, and then you're told to create. Like when you're a creative, or you're a production person, and a creative does not want to be a production person. Like Henry Ford, you know, did not want to hire a bunch of creatives, right, to run the assembly line, yeah. Right? And when you're a creative on assembly line, you are that is soul death. Like you are being, your soul is being killed. You're being drained very quickly. Yeah. So like and it's, you know, like with Drew, it's not like he can sit down and be like, well, I'm just going to play covers and we're just going to have a nice night. You know, it's a good time. Mm-hmm. You know, we're just going to drink and hang out and sing Red Rover, Red Rover. You know, he's called, like, he has set himself up in a place where, like, no, you go pour your heart out there for these people, because that's the product that they want, right? And that's just tough, dude. Yeah. Like the product is now your heart. So like so it's very tough, dude, because when someone complains to me about, or they're like, hey, there's a thread missing, or this thread's coming out on this shirt. I'm like, I don't sell shirts, dude. I don't care about your shirt. I care about the thing it says. And if you were paying attention to the thing it says, you absolutely would never talk about, cut the thread off. Yeah, burn it. Yeah, just cut the shirt in half. Like, I don't care. Like, I didn't sell you a shirt. Yeah. You know, and you did sell them a shirt, you know, and they did pay for the shirt, and if they don't like the thread thing. So then what happens for me is it creates a ton of work for me, because what I do, what a lot of people do in customer service, and what, you know, Cassie does and Amelia does, like, okay, we'll get you a new one on the way out. Like, you can either keep that one and give it to a friend, and we'll get you a new one. But what I do when I hear these things, because I'm sensitive about it, which is why I have to be careful how much customer service I do, is I'm like, hey man, what's going on with you, dude? You complained about this thread, but you know, your shirt says let go for dear life. It just seems like, you know, you chucked the baby and the bathwater. Like you have missed the whole point. We flew right over the top of your head. And if you're going to wear that, because of what that thing comes from, like all of the experiences of my life that have boiled down to that little thing that is printed on your shirt, or, you know, for Drew, like this song that you're singing, I need you to recognize what it means. And by virtue of you complaining via email about a thread being loose on a shirt, we don't make shirts, we print on shirts. I didn't make that shirt. That shirt is not my product. You didn't buy that shirt from me any more than you bought the box that it came in. Like the box was messed up. Like we don't sell boxes. Box is not our product, you know.
Yeah.
Was the message there? Because the message is what I'm selling here. And I'm not even selling the message. I'm trying to give you you can read it on the thing. And if you want to wear it on something that costs us money, you can, you know, whatever. But I'm like, I'm not trying to run a business here, but so I end up, you know, having these large conversations with these people. I'm on ads constantly, like people like gay or, you know, whatever people say on ads. And then I'll jump on there and I'll go research them. I'll go figure out what's going on in their life. I'll figure out what they're doing. I'll call their business. Like I'm a nutcase. And then I'm like, hey man, what's happening for you? Like, what, you know, whatever has led you to this thing that you were scrolling on the internet, you saw something and you decided that you were going to criticize, like take the time out of your day to go criticize something that someone else is doing when you very easily could have just scrolled past. It's like a weird act of aggression. It's literally somebody just kind of walked by you and you shoved them.
Right.
So, and you know, some people might punch you in the face for that and you would deserve it. But my thing is, what's going on with you that you would just shove somebody that you just, because you didn't like the way they looked when they walked by you? And what is it that, because they're just a mirror to you. So what is it, what did they represent for you that you don't like about yourself? Like, this is all from you complaining about a thread. And I go in, dude, like I'll go in hard. And then a lot of times they're like, sorry, I was drunk. I was drinking last night and I shouldn't have said that. And I'm like, yeah, no, I mean, maybe you should have said it because now we have this opportunity to chat. Like, what's going on with the drinking? Why were you drinking? Why are you drinking and scrolling? Sounds like you're a lonely man. Yeah. And a lonely man shouldn't walk the sugary aisles of the grocery, which is what the internet is. You know what I mean? So what I'm trying to offer you is meat. You know, I'm trying to offer you let go for dear life. I'm trying to offer you something else. We're trying to put out a philosophy. We're trying to create a culture and a community that chooses to live their life's best story, so that when you tell the story of whatever last night was, you don't go, oh yeah, I shouldn't have done this and I got drunk. Then I was talking shit on the internet to these people I don't know because they looked cooler than me and I hate how I look and I don't like it that someone looks cooler than me. So then I ordered their thing and then there's a threat out. I don't like it, you know, I paid money for this. And it's like, okay, we got stuff to fix, dude. Let's go straight to let's not work on the symptoms. Let's go treat the cure, right? Let's go not treat the cure. Let's go treat the cause of the problem. Let's go find the root, right? Like we handle customer service in the same way that we do medical care. We treat symptoms. We're constantly, you know, like trying to get you out of pain as fast as we can. It's like, well, why are you in pain? What is the source of the pain? Right. You know, we're trimming trees instead of finding roots. And anyway, so as you can see, like I am not built to manage a business that has 130,000 customers. You know, like I can't have that conversation every single day. I mean, I can, you know, but then and that's what I feel called to do. It's tough. So just be super aware of what type of work, what you're capable of, what your best day looks like, you know, what is the best use of your time, how big your gas tank. Because when it comes to like serving people, dude, my gas tank is way bigger than it ought to be. Yeah. You know, like I'll go from call to call to call to call to Instagram message to thing. And like, nobody even knows how many conversations. I have a friend who like, she credits me with like basically like just being for her in the hardest time of her life. And I don't even remember it. Well, you know, like we'd have call, she would say something and I would video message back, but like I've had a lot of concussions, so I don't remember a lot of stuff. But yeah, you know, like I was there for her. Just this like proxy, like this person out there who just. But I would pour my heart out and say, hey, well, think about these things and this and that, and blah 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 blah. Here's my experience, and here's how it could apply. And she's like, you helped me through the hard. And there's a lot of those people out in the world like that. A lot of them never even said anything. You know, long time listener, first time caller, they'll be like, hey, I've paid attention to you for 7 years. I was going to, you know, like the amount of people that are like, I was going to kill myself, but then I heard you say this thing, which I hear people say that and I'm like, no, you weren't, you know, you weren't. What you did, because they give other people the credit. It's like, no, what you did was you went and sought out something that would give you something to hold on to, right? You know, or give you permission to let go of something else that you're holding on to. But anyway, that
reminds me of a moment that we, one you probably wouldn't remember or even recognize, because I think it was more of a me thing than you think. But when we sat, you came up for, it was belt test, right, to Billings a couple of weeks ago, to Grindhouse. Mm-hmm. Or no, in-house tournament.
In-house tournament.
And we went to Chick-fil-A afterwards, and we sat down, and quite frankly, I'd eaten lunch before that.
I bought Curb's meal.
So full. Yes, you did. Yeah, because Curb's went and got him some hardware.
What a mistake.
2 milkshakes and
Curb's won the tournament. I'm like, dude, I got you, man. And he's like, are you sure? He's like, because I'm going to order kind of a lot. I'm like, yeah, dude. And he's like, all right, let me get 55 chicken nuggets, 14 milkshakes. Like, you ever see those memes where the guy's like, hey, I just want to buy the stuff for the guy behind me?
Yeah,
you
yeah.
know?
And then the guy behind you,
maybe they'll pass it on.
Yeah.
And he's like, I just want to buy his drink. And then he buys his drink and then pulls around, get behind him, and be like, 55 shakes, 55 burgers. Anyways, yes, go on.
Yeah, so
I remember.
That is Curbs. But we sat down and we were waiting for him to get his 55 nuggets and 2 shakes.
He deserved it. It was my great honor, Curbs, if you're listening.
And yeah, and you sat down and you're like, so man, how's therapy been? And it hit me so out of left field, because it was the first time that I had been in the real world confronted with the fact that there are, at this point, 70 plus hours of me talking about my life online and putting stuff out there. And it was such a weird moment for me, because there's so much of your stuff that I've resonated with, and just kind of had that moment where like, hell yeah, Brady, like needed that today. Thanks, man. And never told you about it. It was the first time though that somebody else had come to me and hit me with something that I was like, how would you know that? Oh yeah, there's a lot of my life and my thoughts out online. So I'm curious, like what that feels like for you after, years of putting out your view on the world, into a space that anybody can see it.
So which part? You're curious about which part?
I'm curious about your relationship, I guess, with the fact that there's so much of you that people can have access to that's just like out in the internet.
Yeah, it's, yeah, man. Well, first of all, like I was excited because I pay attention to what you're doing. Like I pay attention to people. People do not understand how much I pay attention. Like for an attention deficit person, there is a superpower, and I'm curious about people, and I'm very curious about people who I see. You can see everybody talks, everybody like posts the thing and does it, but you see people put in the work, and the work creates something. So like everywhere that you are right now, the person that you are right now, all of the things compared to the first time I met you, I'm like, he's doing the work, which is very cool to me. That's fun for me to see. I love that because everybody talks about it. The amount of people that say I needed that today, and they're going to need it tomorrow, and they're going to need it tomorrow because they just operate on this little bit of motivation and don't operate in any form of discipline. Anyway, I guess I'm just telling you I pay attention.
Thanks, man.
And I'm proud of you. It's very cool.
Thank you.
Yeah, it is wild. I remember, when I first started playing punk rock, you're the person on the stage. We'd get like 500 kids that came to our show. It was
for people who haven't played in front of 500 people, that feels like a big freaking show.
Well, the wild thing was like I almost only played in front of 500
Are you serious?
Yeah, because it was like right when we started, because I was a promoter. It wasn't because our band was great.
Gotcha, yeah.
But like I would run around with these quarter sheet flyers. Like I had a great relationship with Nancy at the print office, and I'd go, Nancy, you got to make me a deal, dude. I have $12 and I need enough green, orange, pink. It was green, orange, pink, and blue flyers that I can hand one to every single human who I come in contact with.
You're pawn shopping, man.
I was pawn shopping, and dude, Nancy would hook it up. She's like, I'm running you out, dude. She's like, but you have to cut them, So I would go down and like cut these quarter-page flyers, but I'd go to Walmart and not a single car didn't have a flyer on it, And I would like be like, hey, I would really love it if you'd come to my show, and I'd hand them a flyer, and that was always such a funny thing because you'd hand somebody a flyer and like, oh, nice. When is it? And I'm like, it's at 7:00 on Friday. Put it on the flyer. I was like, nice. Who's playing? And I'd be like, my band and those other bands right there. Those guys are from Casper. It's all on the flyer. Cool. How much is it? Give me that flyer back. It's $5. We actually used to put 5 doll hairs, you know, and some people would actually bring doll, and we accepted it every time.
Love that.
It was awesome. But anyway, yeah, I was just such a promoter. I was just like, please come to my show. It would mean the world. I really look forward to seeing you there. If I don't see you there, I'm going to be probably forget my lyrics because of how sad I'm going to be. And so so part of it was like, if you could get 200 kids to come, you'd get 200 more to come because
they bring a friend.
Because there's nothing to do. We're in a small town. So that was the crazy thing. I haven't seen another show here in town. Even like, you know, Zach Top comes to, well, not now, but like Zach Top came and played here a while back, and like just a lot of acts come through. No one shows up, you know, and I'm like, it really isn't about I wasn't a better musician, not even close.
Yeah.
Right. I played punk rock and screamed into a microphone. It was a lot of energy, but as far as musicianship, it was okay, you know.
Right.
But anyway, we'd have these big shows, and I would, you know, I was always about sharing my perspective. And that band, Freefall, that I talked about, the whole idea was that I came from a culture where, like, I remember going to this show where it was like, you know, if you're not getting fucked up, you're in the wrong building. You know, this guy thought he was Little John, but he was playing metal. And I'm like, yeah, no, I would like some alcohol. You know, who's got some? I was 14, 15, you know, I was like, I definitely, you know.
I'm one of you guys.
Whatever I have to do. If we're doing butt stuff, I love butt stuff, you know. And it's very terrifying for, you know, like that's terrifying. And it's because it felt like I don't have an option. I can't be who I want to be. I can't not drink. I can't not do whatever the thing is that is being said. You must do this to fit in here. And it's weird for it to be an alternative crowd and be like, you must do this to fit in.
Yeah.
It's like, man, I feel like that's the thing I tried to leave. I feel like punk rock is the place for everybody to go. I remember we had a punk show where a bunch of like the jocks showed up, and like all the punk, it was kind of like this weird standoff. Like, what are you guys doing here? You bullied me. You can't be here. This is our cool place to hang out. And I'm like, do you see what's happening here? You guys are literally just doing the opposite thing. They said that you can't hang out, so you came here. Now you're telling them that they can't hang out. You've just swapped positions because you're the cool guy in this scenario. You know, you're the guy with the 3-studded belt and the plaid pants. At a punk rock show, you're cool. These guys look like dorks. You know, they're wearing Iversons. You know, like, but punk rock to me is like everybody belongs here. Everybody gets a place to belong here. You show up and just be whoever you are. The counterculture is to be yourself. You know, and all of us are putting on some mask. We're all trying to fit in somewhere, somehow. And some of us want to fit in with the people who don't fit in, right? Like, so why, like, the band The Misfits was like the best band name ever. Everybody loves The Misfits, not because they're the best band ever. It's like they're not that great, you know, but they were counterculture. They sang about stuff that you couldn't sing about,
right?
You know, all of that. So anyway, at those shows, I would share my heart for that. So we never swore on stage. We never drank on stage. All of our music had a positive message. And that was my whole thing. I was like, I'll play with any band. You can drink and you can smoke and all of that. I just want to be an option for a kid who says, I don't have to do that thing.
Yeah.
It doesn't have to look that way. I can have tattoos and not be a drug addict. Like, you know what I mean? All these like stereotypes, I just want to break them all. Whatever people think they have to do, I want to do the opposite of whatever that is. And so at the time, it was cool. You know, we're all 15 years, 16 years old, cussing. Pretty cool, dude. So we're not going to swear on stage because there might be some kid out there who doesn't want to do that. Yeah. Right? He wants to keep his mouth clean, like, right? And for me, like, you'll rarely hear me swear. If you hear me swear, it's because I'm using that as like a tool to create some impact with what I'm saying.
Amplifier.
Yeah, but now you don't hear, like, the F word is not the every third, you know, very rarely do I even swear.
Right.
And so anyway, I just wanted to be counterculture to this counterculture that had become weirdly mainstream. And anyway, I'd be up there sharing my heart on the stage. I'm like, hey, you can be whatever you want to be. You know, you can be a shooting star. And I'd be pouring out my heart on the stage. And so I'm looking at 500 people, but 500 people are looking at one person. And so then after the show, someone comes up to you and they go, hey, that thing that you said, dude, that really hit me right straight in the heart. And I'm like, I don't know you. You just heard my whole story. You can listen to my music. You see me at school or whatever, you know, like, you know a lot about me. I don't know anything about you. So that relationship is super, super tough because it feels, it's tough because you're a human and I'm a human, right? But I don't know anything about you, but you sort of idolize me, right? Yeah. And that's just, it's really hard to be like, it's like not a real, it's humbling, but it's, Yeah, and social media makes it that much worse. 50,000 people are following you, watching what you do, but I'm not sure what they're doing.
Right.
Some of them, right? Like I listen to your podcast, right? I love to pay if I could, and that's like the tyranny of the urgent, right? Like I grease the squeaky wheels, like yeah. So it is tough. To have people come up and be like, oh yeah, like a lot of people know way more about me than I know about me. They're like, yeah, it was 2019 and you were on this trip and you were like this thing and you had this thing going on, then you hit a dog or whatever, and then this other guy helped you, and I'm like, holy crap, dude, I forgot all about that,
Can you tell me more about that, please?
yeah. I'm like, cool. Did I leave my wallet somewhere? I've been missing that,
Right.
Anyway, so that's it's wild, but it's just it's a big honor. And that's the thing. It's like, well, this is what I'm called to be. People pay attention to me for whatever reason. It's not because I'm better than anybody. It's not because whatever. It's because the unique gift that I've been given by God was that I operate in this way and people seem to want to pay attention. So what do you owe for that? Let's like, what I owe is to be a good steward of that gift. Right. So like people want to talk to me, like give people and it's tough, dude. Bring Drew on, talk more about that. It's very tough to like go to the end of a show for him and have people come up and be like, you changed my whole life and I was going to kill myself. And then I heard I am, and now I didn't kill myself and you saved my life and we're supposed to be married and have babies.
Yeah.
And he's like, what's your name?
Right. It's tricky too, because I mean, in most other circumstances, if you show up for a friend who you've been very tight with and they tell you that, there's a two-sided relationship there where it's there's a pitcher full of stuff on both sides of that, and you pour into each other, and there's like this back and forth thing.
Right.
But what I can imagine, I mean, I haven't had a moment like that, but what I could imagine when I've seen Drew go through that, it seems like one person has a full pitcher. And it's like, well, I don't have anything to pour into you because I don't even know you. So this whole, you dumping your whole pitcher into anything is tricky.
And you don't know me. You have this version of me that you have witnessed from either my greatest hits or like my greatest moments, or just like on repeat of my best stuff. Like, by virtue of, like, I try to keep it real on social media. It's tough to post when you're like not feeling like,
Oof.
You know what I mean? Like, and I don't want to. I don't want to convince anybody like, hey, I'm sad. But don't worry about it. But I just want to be authentic.
I'm being real. I'm being authentic.
I'm trying to be authentic, so I'm telling you guys I'm sad. Like the most authentic thing actually when I'm sad is I don't post anything on social media because I don't want to be there.
Right.
That's the most authentic thing. But I try to but I also don't want to make it seem like I'm happy all the time. Everything's all good all the time. So this whole representation of who you are on social media, is a brand new experiment that we're all going through. Like it really is brand new to us, like our generation. Like I am the last generation that didn't have social media. Like that was not a thing coming up and then had it.
Yeah.
Right. You kind of know both.
How old were you when you got on social media?
Well, I don't know. We had MySpace for the band that was like when I was a teenager.
Okay.
MySpace was like kind of the intro.
Yeah.
And there's like MSN Messenger kind of stuff.
Right.
But like you had, you're like, mine was Brat Boy 72.
Nice.
Because my sister set it up for me.
Cool.
But like Instagram, that started or like Facebook, which is kind of really like the genesis, I would say, of like what we call social media today.
Yeah.
I think Facebook started in 2009, which is, I was in college,
Okay.
I was 2 years after I graduated. So yeah, so it's just, and now, but anyway, all that to say, like, we're still super new.
Yeah.
We're still figuring all this out. So some people are like, you're not being authentic. And it's like, hey, you don't owe anybody, anything. Like you do your best, put what you feel like putting out on there. It's your channel. You get to control it. You can just fart in the microphone if you feel like it. Mm-hmm. It's your thing. It's your creative expression, right? And when you take your creative expression, you make production out of it, all of a sudden you're killing the creativity, right? Like you're putting the creative on the assembly line.
Yeah.
Don't do that.
Right.
Keep the creative in the creative space, and stop playing with these rules, whatever. But anyway, yeah.
That's the creative like box is something that I'm trying to figure out my relationship with, because there's something that I enjoy for myself about setting aside intentional time for creation, because it's really easy for me to get lost in to-do lists, and most of those to-do lists are things, unless I'm intentional about it, that aren't creation, right? I need to get my laundry done. I need to go to the store. I need to get this business thing, send that email, like do all this stuff. And one of the things I did to curb that was to split my to-do list, personal and business, and prioritize accordingly. But one of the things that I've found now is setting aside time to just like have empty and be like, okay, well, this is going to be creative time, and whatever comes out of it, that's cool. If that 2 hours is, I feel like I need to go ingest some things. I need to listen to a podcast. I need to read. I need to journal. I need to do whatever. That's great. And it's like, it does feel like something that I have to do, but it's something that I feel like I have to do for me because I want to capture that. And I haven't gotten to a point, and I hope not to get to a point where I feel like I have to make those moments happen because it's expected or because other people need it or it becomes the thing. But I don't know if quote unquote success, right? If there's 100,000 people looking at that thing that I choose to share from that creative thing, every Monday I try to post like one thing that's just like, hey, this is something I was thinking about this week. There's probably 200 people that see that. If 200,000 people see that, I don't know if I want to keep myself from feeling like it's something that I have to do just because there's more eyeballs on it.
And it shouldn't change a thing. 200 people, 200,000 people, what difference does it make? You know, like, have you read The Creative Act, Rick Rubin's book?
No, God, it's on my list, so I really want to.
Yeah, you got to read that book. I love Rick Rubin. You got to read that book, dude. Yeah, you got to read that book. That dude is such a trip, but you know, like he just speaks to the heart of creativity, because it just doesn't, if you're even paying attention and you're, you know, like it's funny to have you're like, I've created a regiment so that I can be creative, you know, right. Which is cool. Cause that's the reality. Like sometimes you'll bowl best with the pins up. Right. Right. Like, yeah. For me, it's like I have to have, or for like a lot of neurodivergent people, they have to have a time thing. Like if they have time, there's two times for me. There's right now and there's not right now. Right. So like, but if you create a time thing, which is why I'm all of my production, all of my productivity is logarithmic. It looks straight like a vert ramp, like right at the end, all the things happen. Yeah. Right. All of the time, which is, so I'm really good under pressure because I've always been under pressure. In high school and in college, I would ace tests. I would do no homework. Like I kind of had time to do until like, didn't do it. Mm-hmm. But it's test, like it would be like the moment. And I understood that anyway, that's a different thing. But as far as what you put out what you want to put out, because 200 people is an insane amount of people. If there were 200 people in here, this would be a raging party in here. For sure. Absolutely silly, right? Like, I can't handle it. Who the hell is it? I don't even know who's in here, right? Right. 200 people is a lot of people. Yeah. 200,000 people is just the exact same thing multiplied by a bunch, right? Right. So what you create, what you put out, it should have just nothing to do with that thing. Mm. The work should be done when you have decided that the work is done, and once you release it, it's let go for dear lifetime. It doesn't matter what anybody says. If they say they hate it, it's literally just a color. Yeah. Right? Like, here's the color. And people are like, I hate that color. It's like, oh, okay. It's still the color. I love that color. Okay. You know, that's about you. That's not about the color. So you put out the thing that you're because otherwise what'll happen is you start putting the thing out that you think somebody wants to hear. Right. Yeah. And now you're working. Now you're working for them. You're not, that's not creative at all. That's not creating at all. That's producing, right? Mm-hmm. Icky. And also like that, you know, what I find is, you know, it's like, okay, I got to get the laundry done. Uh-oh. Caller number 9. Hello, Mandy. You're the third caller on the podcast today. What do you have to say for yourself? You're live.
How's it going?
How's it going?
Yeah.
It's really good.
Good. Are you needing some meat in your life?
This is Mandy Smith. She runs the Cloud Peak CrossFit.
Oh my gosh, Brady. I'll call you back.
Absolutely phenomenal athlete, great mother, wife, just a stunner. She's been looking very petite these days, beautiful in a dress, but just an absolute stud athlete. I don't know how she does it. I don't know how she keeps the body of a ballerina and just the output of a Matt Fraser.
Man, I should have called you sooner. You would have started my day way better.
I know, you should have. Absolutely.
It's an honor.
Mandy, ladies and gentlemen, how long have we been chatting?
This has been 2 hours.
Insane, dude. I feel like we haven't even gotten into anything.
I know. Well, the good news is we're here all weekend, so.
Yeah. Cool.
We'll carry the mics and the mic board around with us for the rest of the time.
I love it. I love it.
I'll strap it onto my back. Well, dude, this has been super fun. Like I said, there's been a lot of cool stuff, cool moments. I've said it. There's probably 5 podcasts out here where I've talked about, like, I think 2 years ago I was sitting literally right here on this couch, and that guy was here. These other guys weren't here. But it was cool because we talk about chapters, right? And I feel like it was kind of the end. It was the end of I have a lot of energy and don't know where to put it chapter. And it was the beginning of the chapter of, like, okay, the people that I admire most seem like they all have a different thing going on, but the one thing that they have in common is that they were willing to commit to whatever they were passionate about.
Yeah.
And that they were willing to not just let it be like, hey, I'll tell you about my passion once we're a couple drinks in and once we're, in the right moment and all these things. It was just like, no, they're just going to live it and it's okay. And they're all have different things, but they're all friends and get along. So, yeah, man, this, like, being able to do this here and being able to have this chat is a super full circle moment. So I appreciate all the things that you do and the time, man.
It's full circle moment, dude, but it's also not even close. It's not even close. You're this far on your circle, like, and you have good people in your life and you are paying attention. I remember you being here and I remember you paying attention and asking questions and kind of like looking around and being just super curious. You're super curious. And most people are curious, but most people do not have you come from, you're handsome, you're athletic, like you're a lot of things that allow you to that are going to fast track a lot of pieces for you. And a lot of people, like, they shy away from those things. They don't want that. They don't want to use the powers. You seem to be using all of your powers for good. You seem to be actually putting work behind the curiosity. Like, you're putting the pieces together, and who you are now from who you were 2 years ago, literally, like, I can remember you looking around and being like, I wonder if I could. And this moment right now is like, yep, I could. I have figured out all of these things, and I see you making all the changes. I see you, like, stepping in. I see you failing. I see you succeeding, and you can do. How old are you?
25.
You can do anything, dude. You can literally do anything that you want. You're putting all the right work in. You're doing jiu-jitsu and boxing and going through these processes of you are going to suck. And even like and all the things that are like naturally, all of the natural ability that you have, you still have to back off and stop using that stuff and come back to this humility and practice existing in this humility in business, in martial arts. They're all the same things, right? And you choosing to go and risk happy, you choosing to bring all these t-shirts that we make to life. And I love when I see you wearing the stuff, like I'm like, yes, someone gets it, because that's what I'm passionate about. But you can do absolutely anything you want. So next time you think about something you might want to do and you have any hesitation about it, realize that you can do absolutely anything that you want. The thing that you'll have to choose, because there's so many options for you, is what you want to do. So you have to think kind of big picture, like, what actually do I want to do? What am I called for? Like, what is the calling in my heart that I'm made for? Because success for me looks like lining those things up. It's what am I called to do, and am I in alignment with that calling, right? And right now, like, you're in a discovery phase. You're in a buffet, taste everything phase. Continue to taste, dude. I'm so stoked. We can have this conversation again tomorrow, and we can have this conversation again in 2 years. I can't wait to see it again in 2 years. But it's going to be this much more of the circle. Yeah. You're not like this. You're like, it's a lot of those, but you're just moving, dude. You're so early, and you're doing so many things right. I didn't even start to even ask the questions that you've been asking for the past 2 years until I was 5 years later than you are right now. So super proud of you, dude. Thanks for having me on. I like talking into microphones with you.
Yeah, likewise. So much fun. Where can people find you?
The people cannot find me.
Do not go looking.
do not find me. Listen, If you want to find me, you'll find me, and just figure it out.
Cool.
I'm not gonna.
If it looks like Brady and sounds like Brady, it might be Brady.
Yeah.
Say hello.
Yeah, you can find me on this podcast in 2 years.
Cool.
All right,
awesome. This is fun, man. Love you, man.